do you think variations are going to be more viable this time around? Because in MKX, a lot of variations, a lot of characters were just one variation. Like, seriously. Let's actually look at the roster, and we'll go through and let's see. Yeah, a lot of characters were like 1 or 2 variations at most. Not many characters actually played 3. So let's just go through and see which ones actually played, like which variations were played or viable at like a higher level. So Alien first. I'm just gonna assume like before because no one really plays Alien now, but like Conjurer I always thought was pretty solid, but no one really picked Conjurer. I think this was a different case for Alien just because Tarkatan and Acidic were just too strong. Conjurer was never really bad, and it still isn't, but like the other two were always just mad strong, right? Like they were always just Tarkatan was crazy good. Acidic was insane, and then Conjurer just kind of existed. But like there was no reason to pick him, right? There was never a Conjurer tournament that I can recall. Like in the at the highest level. But yeah, like Alien isn't really one of those characters. All 3 are pretty solid. Like you could play all 3 probably. Leatherface, this is just a kind of the same thing as Alien. Killer's really strong, and the other 2 are okay, but like Killer was just always played more because 1, it's just probably the best one, and maybe Pretty Lady got played, but I never really saw it. This is just a weird case of like no one really played Leatherface that much in tournament, so we didn't really get to see that. But I guess I don't know. I guess they're okay. Killer is just probably the overall strongest one, and it kind of just made sense to play him all the time. It's really hard to see like the representation of all 3 because no one really played Leatherface anyway. Jason. I think all 3 are good. We've seen all 3 all the time. Like he's for sure good with all 3. Like 100%. I'm pretty sure we've seen all 3 in tournament before. So like Sonic Fox had his reign with Slasher for a long time. Rio and White Boy played both of them. Played like all 3 variations, I think. But Slasher got nerfed a bit. But even overall, yeah. Predator. This is another weird one. We really only saw Hishikiten pretty much the whole time. Rio did play Hunter, that's right. I remember that. But a lot of the time we just saw Hishikiten. These variations, like Hunter was played pretty early on. I remember when he first dropped, he was like mad broken. So like he was played quite a bit. But in tournament, consistently, like he wasn't really used that much. It was mainly Hishikiten. Like, you know, we had Forever King, Destroyer. There was definitely more that I can't think of right now. But yeah. Most of the time, like 2 variations seem to be the way. Same with Shinnok, you know, Necromancer was never ever used. Let's keep it real. It was rarely used, never at the highest level, like ever, that I can recall. Imposter and Bone Shaper always played really strong, always been mad good. Kung Lao. I'm gonna say, pretty much from the get-go, all 3 have been pretty good. We've seen all 3 of them in tournament, always. Yeah, I'm gonna say Kung Lao is an exception where all 3 are really good. Hat-Trick wasn't really used too much, but Scar was using Hat-Trick really early on in the ESL days, and that pretty much proved that the character was viable. He was kind of cooking with that shit really early on, so I'll say that's a viable character in terms of all 3. Now, this one's a weird one. Jax is pretty bad anyway, in general. He's not really that good anymore. But overall, we kind of did see all 3, you know? I feel like we didn't see that much pumped up, but Wrestler we definitely saw a lot of. Tyrant pretty much held down this character, to be honest. Tyrant and Dab, they held down this character. Dab didn't play it too much in tournament, but Tyrant definitely like cooked up with all 3 variations all the time. Heavy weapons obviously being the worst, but they were all viable for sure. Oh, Jupiter. Holy fuck. I forgot about Jupiter. That's crazy. Shout out to Jupiter, man. He's a god. He is actually a god. He is sick. Now, this man, there's no introduction needed. I'm not even going to go into it. Characters, all 3 variations are definitely viable. All 3, 100% viable. Probably one of the best all-rounder characters in the whole game. You can kind of pick any variation and actually play. Commando is definitely the worst. However, definitely viable as well. Man's really strong. Kano is really strong. Especially now, like in the version of this game, Cybernetic like shines really hard. Cutthroat's still there, but he's like a bit more risky now, so he's not played as much. And Commando is just like, he's kind of just there, but he's really good as well. Alright, Sonya Blade. This one is weird as well, because like, Special Forces I always saw was decent. it just wasn't really played too much because it was just way overpowered. Like, it was just way overshined from the other two. Like, Covert obviously was always really good. The mix was insane. Like, Cusco was mixing with Covert Ops since day one. It's basically MK9 Sonya. And then like Scar obviously with Demo Sonya, pretty much carving up everybody with like the 50-50s and shit like that we always had. Special Forces maybe not viable. Probably not, to be honest. The other two always. Alright, my man's Johnny Cage. My man's Johnny Cage. This one's like
Johnny Cage.
hard. It's hard. I think A-list and Stunt Double were always really strong. Fisticuffs is okay, I think. He's not terrible. But I think at the highest level, A-list and Stunt Double were the only ones viable. Really early on, DJT was cooking with Fisticuffs. But then he got nerfed, and then he kind of just fell off. I'm just gonna say Johnny was pretty much a 2 variation character. Fisticuffs didn't really give you anything that was worth picking, in my opinion. The other two just made way more sense to always pick those two. At least that's my opinion. Like, I'm not a Johnny player, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like he's just a 2 variation character. Kenshi. I'm gonna say all of them were pretty solid. I don't really know much about Kenjutsu, I'm gonna be honest. And we didn't really see it much. We pretty much only saw Possessed for the most part. Pig actually played like all of them for a little bit. I feel like he was mostly a 2 variation character. Kenjutsu wasn't really used too much, so I'm not gonna say for sure because I actually just don't know, to be honest. All right, my boy Aaron Black. This one's straightforward, pretty straightforward. If we look at tournament wise, Gunslinger and Outlaw were used a lot. Outlaw really early on until he got nerfed, and then Gunslinger kind of just like everyone just realized Gunslinger was like way better than Outlaw, so that's kind of the swap there. Pretty much Sonic Fox was like the only one using Aaron Black anyway. But Marksman was Marksman ever used in a tournament? Like, I actually don't remember, to be honest. Like, if he was, it wasn't much because we never really saw Marksman, and Marksman was clearly worse than the other two. So it's like it's clear that Aaron Black was, in terms of matchups and actually playing the character in tournament, you would only need these 2 variations. Marksman brought you nothing to the table, in my opinion. So yeah, moving on. We're gonna talk about Katana now. Katana is one of the characters that, in my opinion, is definitely a 3 variation character. Like, I think all three are viable 100%. In order, I think Mournful's the best, then Assassin, then Royal Storm. I think all of them are viable 100%. I think that you can actually counterpick characters while using your same character and change your variation, like in terms of the matchup. So it's really, really good that that's a thing. Like, this is what I want the variation system for, right? Like, if you're playing against pressure characters, you can use Assassin to get the parry. If you're playing against other zoners, you can use Mournful to counter zone with Glaive. Royal Storm, I don't really know. Like, I guess for the Reflect, maybe. I'm not sure about how Royal Storm plays into it, but I've definitely seen KP and Dragon use all 3 of them before. So, also Lift has more range as well in Royal Storm, so that's probably a big reason you would pick it. Also for square boost as well. So, yeah, like all 3 definitely were viable in tournament, so it's really good. Like, that's exactly what I want to see MK11 have. Liu Kang. This one is hard to talk about because Duelist was never seen as much, but when we did see him, he always did well, right? Like, Forever Elite destroyed people with Duelist. I remember in Summer Jam like 2 years ago. Deadly Rebel is always doing well with Duelists. Flame Fist is really good. And Dragon's Fire obviously is top tier as fuck. We know that by now. Liu Kang was definitely viable in all 3 in my opinion. When we saw Duelist played, he did well. Now, Forever Elite is godlike anyway, and so is Deadly Rebel. So I think it might have just been a bit of matchup unfamiliarity, and it's how good they were playing. Because Duelist is like scary if you don't know the matchup. However, I'm not going to discredit it completely. I think he was definitely viable in all 3. So, you know, not too bad. Liu Kang kind of held his own. Scorpion, I don't really know because this is the same thing. I think Inferno was just asked, to be honest. No one really played. No one played Inferno Scorpion since the netcode was fixed. Yeah. Yeah, so Inferno Scorpion was always like pretty bad. He just like struggles at opening you up. He doesn't really have anything cheap at all. He doesn't have any like strong tools, to be honest. Like Inferno has pretty much nothing. Like he has minions that are like pretty bad. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've ever seen a Inferno in tournament. Have we? Have we seen a good Inferno in tournament? Like I remember Ketchup, I'm pretty sure, was playing Inferno for a while, and he was actually pretty sick. But he didn't like play in tournament with it, I don't think. Ninjutsu, always really strong variation, super solid, has great neutral that he can use against a lot of the characters in neutral. Like his buttons are really good, his damage is always good, has like easy meterless launches, you know, Scorpion stuff. So I think for Scorpion you'd be using Ninjutsu in the neutral matchups, and then Hellfire is like obviously got mad pressure. His meterless damage is crazy. All of his damage is crazy. He's got good fireball cancels. Flame Aura like kills a lot of neutral. So Scorpion definitely one of those characters where it's like you can kind of play almost all the variations. I'm not too sure about Inferno, but yeah, you can definitely play the other two. Ermac, 100%, all three are viable. Spectral is really good. I wouldn't say he's really good, but he's definitely good. He's pretty good. Mystic is really, really good. Master of Souls has always been good. However, I still think Mystic is the best, but you can kind of play all three of them, to be honest. Mystic was the one we saw the most. Spectral, Toxin, and Big D, pretty much, they actually played all three, to be honest. So yeah, definitely all three of them are viable. Kotal Khan, I think all three of them are actually still really, like, still decent. I don't think he's a great character overall. I don't think Kotal Khan's very good anymore. However, in terms of variations, I do think all three of them serve a purpose. So yeah, I would say you could play all three of Kodals. I don't think any of them are like terrible. And pre-patch as well, you could definitely pick all three like 100%. He was mad good pre-patch. But yeah, now you don't really see him as much anymore, obviously, because he's just not as strong. However, he's not as bad as people think, and myself, to be honest. I was kind of like, early on, I thought he was really bad. I don't think he's terrible. He kind of just gets fucked by the top tiers, so that's why I don't think he's the best. This is my boy right here, my boy Reptile. I think all three of his variations are definitely viable. Noxious serves like the least amount of purpose, but if you just want to play Reptile straightforward and like just play a solid Reptile, Noxious is the way to go, I think. I used to play Noxious for a while, and I felt like Reptile's tools were already strong enough, so like the Noxious, like the Cloud, kind of just like gave you more damage pretty much. That was all it really did. But again, if you're going to play Reptile, you might as well just play Deceptive or Nimble. However, Noxious is not a bad variation at all, because Reptile is just like so solid anyway. So I'm going to say that all of them are definitely viable. Nimble was like the more picked one because it's like obviously the strongest. However, Deceptive was definitely good as well, and so was Noxious. Alright, Melina. This one's like, a lot of these are the same in the regards that there's one variation we just didn't see as much. However, I do think that all three of Melina's variations are definitely viable. Ravenous was like harder to use. Sonic used it a little bit, but not too much. And then, you know, Piercing had her phase where I was like, Piercing was just taking over everything. Piercing was like broke as fuck. And then Ethereal, Samij obviously always played Ethereal for a long time. So, and he obviously showed that like, it was just insane. So yeah, all three variations of Melina are definitely viable. Ethereal probably the best one right now. Maybe Piercing still, I don't know. But Ravenous was always definitely viable as well. Sub-Zero. He's a character where I think all three of them are pretty decent. Unbreakable is not like crazy or anything, and neither is Cryo. However, I do think all three of them are playable, like in tournament. You know, like Gilbag showed that Cryo like actually existed. So did Sonic for a little bit, but he kind of dropped him just because I think he got bored, and like, you know, he actually almost won his first tournament with Cryo. But yeah, we started to see Unbreakable a little bit more towards the end, and in this version of the game, I think all three of them are definitely like decent picks. However, Grandmaster kind of just just destroys all of them. So when you're playing Sub-Zero, you kind of got to think about like, why would I not play Grandmaster? I feel like that's a really hard question to answer. Like, how do you answer that as a Sub-Zero player? Why would you not play Grandmaster? Like, it's just so strong. It's like, it doesn't really you don't really have a true reason to pick the other two. At least from my experience. But feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because like I said, I don't know everything about the game. But that's what it feels like from my point of view. Veritol, I'm not going to go too much into detailing, because I actually don't know too much about the other two variations. However, Ruthless was always really good, and I'm pretty sure Lucky was ass, and I'm pretty sure Vicious is pretty ass as well. So I'm just gonna say Ferrotor is basically just Ruthless Ferrotor, at least from what we saw. Like Lucky, like King Junior played Lucky, and so did Gur, but never really like broke out with Lucky. You know, kind of just like hung around in that like mid level. It's like, but Bio kind of just held down only with Ruthless. So I'm gonna say Ferrotor is basically just Ruthless. All right, Takeda. This guy, all three for sure viable. Lasher, I don't really know the purpose of Lasher, like in terms of matchups, because I'm not a Takeda player. However, all three of them definitely viable in tournament. Hayate killed it with Ronin. Shiryu, like Raptor, killed it. Raptor killed it. Googie obviously always played well with Shiryu. Matrix always played well with Shiryu, and he used Lasher a little bit too. However, Lasher was used less, but all three of them definitely viable for sure. And I just had a massive voice crack. Holy shit! All right, let's get into my character now. We're gonna talk about Devora. I'll keep it 100 with you guys. Venomous is unviable for sure. Like, definitely no reason ever to pick Venomous in tournament. Like, it doesn't bring anything to the table. All her normals are the same. However, you get nothing off of like her forward one, and you pretty much get nothing off of your Punisher's mid screen except like a little restand into like a 50-50. It's like her armor move is good. However, it's not enough to just make you want to pick her. Like, yeah, you can get them off you with your armor move, but it's like that's all you get. Like, okay, now you're off me. What am I gonna do now? Like, there's not enough threat from Venomous to make her make her viable. She's also hell boring as well. But Broodmother always really good. Broodmother was pretty bad at first, but in this version she's pretty solid. She struggles in some matchups like where she gets zoned, but that's kind of where Swarm Queen comes into the part. So between Swarm Queen and Broodmother, you can definitely play your matchups how like you need to. There's only like 3 matchups I would pick Broodmother in anyway, but for the most part, Broodmother and Swarm Queen always have been. Swarm Queen's always been obviously the best one. However, I do think Broodmother plays a part in like the matchups that is necessary. Alright, Cassie Cage. I'm gonna say straight up, all 3 were viable for sure. Spec Ops was always really good. Hollywood obviously was mad good, top tier even at one point. And Brawler was always really good as well. Like, all 3 of these variations were used in tournament pretty consistently, I'd say. Like, not Spec Ops as much, but definitely used for sure. Brawler was always like, Sonic started using Brawler more. There's other players who use Brawler as well. Hollywood and Spec Ops. Like, I think Cassie's just so solid. It's like, all of her variations are good. Even Cassie by herself without the variation is good. So, yeah, she was definitely a viable character in all 3 variations, 100%. My guy Raiden. Well, this one's pretty straightforward. Displacer, 100% really strong. Thunder God, pretty strong. Not great, but not bad either. Master of Storms, useless. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Master of Storms, actually useless. He's cool, but there's absolutely no reason you'd ever pick Master of Storms when you have Displacer and Thunder God there. Like, that's how bad he is. It's like, when you play Master of Storms, Raiden feels like a shit character. When you play Thunder God and Displacer, Raiden feels like a good character. That's basically how it is. So, yeah, that's basically how I would put it. Okay, Jackie Briggs. This is another one, pretty blessed character here. She's literally the definition, I think, of like a perfect three variation character. You have your pressure with high tech, and your your corner pressure, your cancels, stuff like that. Then you have shotgun for your straight 50-50s and high damage. And then full auto is like the neutral / zoning character. So yeah, those 3 are definitely mad good. All 3 variations are good. You can definitely play matchups with Jackie, all 3. You would never have to pick another character, seriously. So I think Jackie is one of the best at using all 3 variations. Alright, Quan Chi. In this version, Warlock is useless. Definitely. He's definitely just useless now. However, the other 2 are definitely really good. And I feel like those 2 are the only ones you really need anyway. I know back in the day, it used to be, when Warlock was still, like, viable, He was definitely used like in some matchups. I remember. Illusion used to use Warlock. I don't think Warlock's like great anymore. However, I don't actually know too much about him because I don't know if he's worth picking in a matchup anymore. But I do remember back in the day when all three were definitely getting used. So I'm gonna say overall in MKX's life, all three were definitely used and viable. Maybe not so much now, but definitely before. So I'm gonna say that. Kung Jin is a weird one. Bujutsu wasn't used too much later on. He was really good early on, and I think he's still just as good, but he wasn't used as much because Shaolin kind of like swooped in and like he took all of like the shine, and Social was used as well. So I would say Kung Jin, all three viable, all three pretty solid, and even though Shaolin was the one that was used way more than the others, it kind of made sense that all three of them are good. Like, definitely all three of them are viable. So, yeah, Kung Jin, he passed the 3 variation list. Alright, Goro boys. My guy Goro. This one, I can't even say, man. Like, for the most part, I would just say that Tiger Fury was us, I think. I don't actually know. I'm going to keep it real, I don't know. Kuatan Warrior and Dragon Fangs, definitely both viable. But did we ever see a Tigre Fury, like, ever? In one tournament match? I actually don't remember seeing him once. I swear to God. So, I'm going to say for the most part, he's mainly a 2 variation character. You can kind of, like, he brings, like, Tigre Fury brings nothing to the... He brings nothing to the table, I think. Like, you already have your frame traps and your zoning in the other 2. So, like, he kind of just is there and doesn't really... He's not really worth being picked. I don't actually know if he's good or not. Like, I seriously don't know. So I'm just gonna leave it out. Just ignore everything I say about Tigre Fury, because I actually do not know. But the other 2, definitely good. But I never saw him much, so I'm just gonna say for the most part, he's 2 characters, 2 variations. But again, I didn't see much of Tigre Fury, so I don't know. Okay, Tanya is definitely one of those characters that can play all 3. Now that I look at it, there's actually a fair few characters that can. Pyro, obviously straightforward for the zoning, you know. Tanya zoning was always good in Pyro. Kobu had the close-up wrecker pressure. And then Dragon Naginata was like kind of neutral with the stuff and like had the instant overhead mix and it has a really good wake up as well. So it's like all of them are very good. Revit, Leafing played all 3 always. And he made all 3 of them work pretty well as well. So yeah, Tanya was definitely a character you could play all 3 with. My guy Tremor, I think all 3 of them are definitely good. Crystalline, obviously, like Crystalline's obviously the best one free. Aftershock's still really good, you know, he has better zoning than Crystal. And then Metallic, like, I mean, I don't really know what he brings to the table that much. He's definitely viable, but he just wasn't used too much. Although, I do think that all 3 of them are viable 100%. Metallic's trait, like, the thing you'd pick Metallic for is probably his meatless damage. Like, when he's in Lava Skin, he gets, like, the back forward 4 that rolls on the ground and, like, gives you a good launcher. So, it's probably just that. However, I don't think anything else about him is like that great. However, they all do have the same kind of plus frames and they kind of all give you that good damage and meterless hit confirms as well. And Metallic has the restand, that's right. So yeah, I think all 3 of them are pretty good. However, Crystal probably the strongest one in this version of the game. Why does my voice keep doing that? Boracho, this is a weird one again because I genuinely don't know 100% things about Boracho. However, I think Bartitsu was definitely viable, definitely good. We saw him quite a bit. And same with Dragon Breath. Dragon Breath definitely good. Saw him a bit. He was pretty strong. You know, his mix-up game was strong. His reset game was strong. And both of them were pretty good. However, Drunken Master, I genuinely don't know. Like, I'm gonna say he was probably not that great. However, I did not see him too much. If anyone played him, I'm sorry, but I didn't see you guys in tournaments, just keeping it real. However, the other 2 definitely were seen in tournaments, and I think both of them were pretty good. Maybe Drunken Master was good? I don't know. He didn't really get his chance to shine. But I think overall Boracho was like a pretty good character, to be honest. Okay, Triborg is like the definition of being able to counterpick kind of in your matchups, right? In your variations. So Smoke, obviously really strong. He had his restands. He had his meterless damage. Which they all actually do have, pretty much. Smoke, he obviously had his, like, Smoke Bomb Spear resets. He's, like, kind of a 50-50 Vortexy character early on. Then you just turn into, like, the more neutral, heavy Triborg version. Sector is obviously like the zoning one. Still has the meterless confirms. His missile pressure is pretty decent, and like, yeah, like smoke's damage is always good. Sector's damage is good. So talking about Cyrax, like, Cyrax is a hard one, right? When you look at Triborg as a character, you shouldn't really need Cyrax, to be honest. Like the other two are just like the other two cover everything, I think, for you. I think you could just play these two and you'd be covered in every matchup. But Cyrax, like, he does have that factor that the others don't have, right? Cyrax gives you the potential. I'm not gonna say it's not guaranteed, but he gives you the potential to reset characters and get that mix going that the others don't have. However, he does struggle in a lot of ways, whereas he doesn't have many great meter. He has like no meterless confirms except off of like not meterless confirms. Sorry, like it's harder to make people scared of Cyrax when he has no bar, because if he doesn't have meter, he's not really scary. Like in terms of his pressure. So that's kind of where I think the others excel a little bit more. Their pressure is a little bit scarier because they have like, you know, Smoke has Smoke Bomb or Phase Away, and Sector has like the missiles as well. However, Cyrax like probably struggles in a lot of matchups. I'm not too sure. I feel like he might. He obviously doesn't cover the shit that the other two do. So yeah. And his damage is just like pretty bad anyway. However, Scars Unseen obviously shows like the potential of Cyrax, and like so did Mustard, you know. Like you can see the potential in those characters and why Cyrax is like a kind of viable pick. Like I think he's actually viable, but I don't think compared to the other two he's anything. And if we're gonna talk about Cyber Sub, I think Cyber Sub is actually just like us. Like Cyber Sub is bad. Like he's one of the worst characters in the game, in my opinion. His lack of mids is just like, it's one of the hardest things to do in this game to deal with. It's just like you can't make someone scared to block against you. And in terms of variations, there's zero reason to pick Cyber Sub. If you want to do the mix, pick Cyrax. Cyber Sub is just like the fake mix, so I think he's just like a gimmicky character that's there. He used to be so good, but then he kind of just died away anyway. But yeah, that actually covers everybody, right? I did everyone. So yeah, what do you guys think? I think that for the most part, every variation is, well, not every variation, but for the most part, most variations are viable, and kind of goes to show that they actually balance the game pretty well by the end of it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think though.